My dear sisters, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Ms. Christina Duarte, USG and Special Advisor on Africa, Ms. Vera Songwe, USG and Executive Secretary of the UNECA, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am most honored to participate in the 22 edition of the Africa Dialogue Series. Indeed, the ADS has proven to be a relevant platform for knowledge incubation and exchange, and in line with the main theme of the 35th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union on strengthening resilience in nutrition and food security on the African continent. The international webinar on human capital development, climate, energy, and food systems is aptly crafted to allow me to briefly share thoughts on the need for a consolidated African food security and nutrition program that is well resourced to tackle Africa's food challenges and food shortages. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while Africa is yet to fully recover from the socioeconomic repercussions which came out of the ongoing global pandemic of COVID-19, the current Russia-Ukraine conflict does not only land another major setback to the global economy, but also to the African continent. Since the start of the conflict, global wheat, sunflower, and crude oil prices have soared to previously unheard of heights, which, if continues, will pull back Africa into increased poverty, wiping away some of the steady gains made by the African continent to overcome challenges, strengthen our economies, and build strong institutions that will advance democratic principles. The increased extent and intensity of hunger and malnutrition in Africa, particularly among women and children and vulnerable groups, is a story we know. On the other hand, we also recognize the numerous successes undertaken by African governments to tackle hunger and malnutrition. However, the imperative and urgency to drive change that will enable communities to realize zero hunger for their population by 2025 cannot be overemphasized. The looming food crisis in Africa will only amplify the apparent urgency for policy and investment choices to be made for increased access to nutritious food and addressing structural weaknesses and vulnerability, including poverty and inequality, which are part of the problem blocking access to nutritious diets for all. There is an urgent need for an African Union-led initiative to support member states respond to this looming food and nutrition insecurity in Africa. Whilst we also embrace the UN Food System Summit momentum, our NEPAD places emphasis on the urgent need for policy and investment choices that will transform local capacities and build resilient and inclusive food systems. These choices must be made and requires a consolidated African food security and nutrition program. In this regard, our NEPAD's food security and nutrition program is providing the continental programmatic scope and tool to foster basic conditions to address food and nutrition challenges. And we wholeheartedly invite the United Nations system, particularly the Rome-based UN agencies, to support the AUDA NEPAD program of food systems. The program is designed to empower systemic local ownership and responsibility. Therefore, all initiatives, including bilateral and multilateral collaborations on building resilient and inclusive food systems, must be integral to existing national structures and plans, beginning with national development plans of African governments. At the regional and continental level, the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, the CADEP, Malabo Declaration, the Agenda 2063, and other sector plans such as climate change, healthcare, and education plans should remain the frameworks within which food security and nutrition should be pursued. The program will also ensure that a mechanism to mobilize and enable community participation in agricultural value chains are in place. Frontline and grassroots players and stakeholders through technology will require information support and training, access to appropriate forms of investment capital, facilitation and support on aspects such as standards, packaging, and marketing will also be pivotal towards the food system's value chain. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as the new CEO of Auda NEPAD, my focus this year will be working towards the full operationalization of the Auda NEPAD Development Fund as directed by the 35th African Union Summit. This flagship funding instrument aims to expand resource mobilization efforts and innovative financing mechanisms by developing and managing flexible fund models to increase sustainable development resources for Africa's most pressing priorities. It is an opportunity to use this basket fund as an alternative resource mobilization tool to mobilize funds towards addressing Africa's looming food and nutrition crisis. Furthermore, I'll be launching a new initiative that will be targeted at Africa's young professionals to advance Agenda 2063 and other Auda NEPAD's flagship and priority programs. The initiative called Auda NEPAD Technical Advisory Scheme for Young Professionals will be focused on technical and professional capacity mobilization of Africa's young professions within the continent and the diaspora for Africa's public sector development and also implementation of public sector programs. This scheme will ensure that the dynamism and technical know-how of the continent's youth are harnessed for in-country program delivery and project implementation. Cushioned by proactive and vibrant private sector engagement strategy, these and other Auda NEPAD programs and projects will be made to be impactful. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me point out one issue of critical importance in our collective efforts to support economic growth and development initiatives in Africa. This is the issue of coordination. Where efforts are fragmented, even well-intended programs end up less effective, very low value for money, and often piecemeal in content, and therefore simply unsustainable. It is my wish that as we deliberate further, the panelists and open discussion will examine the issue of coordination and systems approach, which also recognizes and enables practical solutions not only on human capital development or on climate or energy or food systems, but in an integrated manner, addressing solutions that cut across building the linkages, interdependencies in a very coordinated manner. Indeed, these are unprecedented times for the African continent, and it is my fervent hope that the thematic outputs emanating from the month-long Africa Dialogue series will strategically allow our institutions to refocus our work towards addressing the human capital development, climate, energy, and food system linkages. Thank you, and I wish you all fruitful deliberations.